familiar faces I see again. Thank you for coming back and joining us for a second or third session. That's always a pleasure to see. This is our focus on teaching and learning, using our iPads in our district for our K-12 pilot. And I call this the Coventry Chronicles in our iPad journey, because certainly it has been a journey. From figuring out a financial plan, to getting all the stakeholders on board, to forcing new infrastructure mandates into a very old and aging infrastructure, to actually rolling out professional development for teachers, and so that they feel they have the confidence, the competency, that they are ready to roll out with this new learning, not only for them, but for their students. So we started in our district. Certainly everything comes back to our mission and our plan. What are we trying to do? We're trying to prepare students for life, learning, and work in the 21st century. What are our initiatives, and what do we need to have in the hands of students in order to reach these initiatives that are down here? For us, time and time again, doing a year full of research helped us see that implementing tablet technology of some way, whether that be a Chromebook or that be an iPad, we saw that as a gateway, as a vehicle and a tool to help us really meet our mission. So all the decisions that we make going forward about that particular device, about an app that may or may not need to be on there, a policy or a procedure that we need to develop and create, because when you're doing something brand new, you have to build it, as they say, from soup to nuts. You've got to look at all of those avenues. And constant, again, we come back to, how does this help us achieve our mission? How does it help us get there? This is our beacon. This is our light. We never forget what's going on here. How is this going to help make our district better? This was certainly built on the PELP framework, which we did talk about in the first session. And that was an important research that came out of Harvard University. One of the things I wanted to kind of point out here is, you're getting at the instructional core, but you can't forget about any of these other pieces on the outside. And for me, in IT, it's a lot about this, the environment. What are people saying? How do they feel about this? What is their perception about the iPads? What is the perception about teaching and learning? I do not want my teachers to look at me and go, oh God, one more thing I gotta do. Nobody wants that, because then what happens to the environment, what happens to the culture, and there goes the mission. Ooh, we might as well just, all drains lead to the ocean, for heaven's sake. So certainly keeping that in mind, making sure that, as the director of Ed Tech, I'm making sure to always talk about how this fits into our mission and why this is really important, and how this is going to help our whole school and our culture. So with that said, teachers look at me, the administrative team, we sat and decided, okay, what is going to be our model? How are we going to help our staff understand and see how this iPad, because we decided to go with iPads, if you didn't join us earlier, into the framework of teaching and learning and what it is we're going to do. We agreed on this model based on our research that we felt this was the perfect way to help bring something new and exciting. Ultimately, what's the vision, what's the goal? The ultimate vision and goal is to make it integrated within everything we do, not a layer on top, something to be forgotten, something to be, but more something woven in to everything that we do. Well, as we said in our earlier presentations as well, teachers need entry points for that. They come to you with different levels of readiness, just like students. Some are more confident with iPad, some are more confident with Windows-based platforms, some of them are tech-phobic and are like, ooh, I don't want to touch that, right? We have them all. So we felt that this particular model was really going to help us. No matter what, giving opportunities and examples of where the devices could help enhance something that teachers are already doing. Think about something you're doing right now to substitute an activity using the iPad. That's all I'm asking. Nice and easy entry point, okay? So that's, use Google Earth instead of looking at a paper map. Easy. okay? So we go in, the district expectation is high use, personalize the device, use it, put your kids' birthdays in there, take pictures of your family, your cat, your dog, your horse, whatever you need to do. Build familiarity with the device, right? We just want you to use it. Naturally, it will come. How? Because you know how it works. How you can use it for teaching and learning. Maybe you'll get, other teachers may be already comfortable and have a lot of ideas already of how to enhance. They might go right to this augmentation section. How can I really enhance something that I'm doing, right? Where I could use this as a substitute tool to enhance some functionality I didn't have before, right? Networking, Skyping with another school, for example, a pen pal exchange now becomes visual with a Skype versus paper letters, just to give you an idea. Ultimately, where do we want, as part of our vision, to get everyone ready for 21st century? We really need people up here, thinking up here, right? And that really comes a lot deeper down in the work, and that's the curriculum revision piece, and really weaving it into problem-based learning scenarios. How can we use these tools to modify what we're doing, or even up here redefine something that wasn't possible before that the technology tool helps us do. So I spent time going through all the different staff meetings, different opportunities, any opportunity I had really, to really talk about what our model was. And teachers jumped in at different points and tried different parts. And I'm really proud to introduce members of our staff in just a few minutes to really talk about their experiences and journeys. And they're all at different parts here, and they're going to talk about that journey and showcase some student examples for you. Many people had asked before, well, what does that look like, right? I call it the constellation, the iPad constellations. You keep talking about this pilot, and how did it look? Well, we wanted to try all different approaches to really see what was going to work. So I really liked this slide. It's kind of hard to see the credit there, but it's in our packet, our green packet over there on our resource list as well. You can see this a little bit bigger. But what can we do with one iPad, one teacher iPad? What can be done? How can we use that? How can we enhance or transform teaching and learning with one iPad? Seems, oh, I only have one. What can I do, right? Well, Katie's going to talk about what she was able to do with just one iPad. We also have groups of iPads where there's 3 to 5 in like learning centers and learning stations in the classroom. That could look completely different in our elementary school versus a few iPads at our high school. Many of you know or don't know, we have a one-to-one iPad in our grade 10, expanding next year to also include grades 10 and 11 for the one-to-one. What does that look like when I have a mixed class and not every kid has a one-to-one device? That causes us to create the need to make bundles that you can sign out from the library in bundles of 5 up to 15. So a teacher could go in, sign out a bundle pack to then hand them out to students to do something that maybe has a mixed group with one-to-one. Or even just do differentiated centers in classes that don't have iPads at all. So there's a lot of different options to be had there, but certainly, like I mentioned earlier, every procedure, every process that we have, you got to think about those parts of the puzzle and get them in there. So then in this one-to-one concept, as I mentioned, our grade 10 students, take them home, they're signed out to them, almost like a library book for the year. What happens is we also do a little bit of a dedicated model in terms of, in our middle school, we have quote-unquote the cart concept, but those carts are dedicated to classroom teachers in the social studies department right now to be expanded for the next year. And so that carted model stays with those particular social studies teachers only. So all the kids, like in grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, get a chance to work with the iPads, but it's through that kind of department setting cart model. So that teacher is responsible for that cart, and designs the lessons around using the pads, and they don't leave the teacher's classroom. So we've done a little bit of everything. So without further ado, I want to just take a quick minute to introduce my fabulous staff that I've brought here to talk to you more specifically about what they've done and answer questions that you have. From Coventry High School, I have Ms. Katie Pease. I have also from Coventry High School, Mrs. Debbie Gooddale. From my intermediate school, grade 3, Miss Holly Wells. And I have my everything man. he's our district gifted and talented teacher. And some of you were here earlier wanted to know about the Ed Tech coach. The .2 Ed Tech coach. He's also the Ed Tech coach, so that's Mr. Jeff Spivey at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Katie. Okay. Yeah.
I'm Ed Tech coaching right now.
I don't do bear play that much, so.
Tell them what you're going to do.
Okay. So I'm Katie Pease. I'm a world language teacher at Coventry High School. And I was in the first group of teachers that got their iPads this time last year. And part of the fun of this was we had lots of PD that our superintendent and principals did for us. And because we really didn't know where to start, how are we going to take this device that we've never used before and then incorporate them into mixed classes and the like. So one of the things I'm going to show you shortly when this gets situated is a project we did with just staff on PE time. We had an app called Educreations, and so I'm going to show you the staff one, and then Debbie's going to follow up with what she did with her students. But we were able to kind of be kids and be students ourselves and really just play with the app. So our task was we were supposed to pretend that we were looking for an ideal candidate to apply to Coventry High School. And we had to use the Educreations app, which most of us had never used before, ever. And we got, I think, an hour to run around the school, take pictures, put sound in, and then bring it back and show everybody. And that's, so, are we good? Yeah, you're cool. So I can show you what my department came up with. Yeah, it should be. And Educreations is a free app.
Welcome to Coventry High School. We're looking for a teacher who knows the core values and beliefs of Coventry High School. We want a teacher who's culturally aware. A teacher who can use essential knowledge and skills to demonstrate critical, creative, and adaptive thinking. Someone who can create or respond effectively to artistic works or technical products. We would like someone that has a keen sense of classroom management. We would like someone that's kind and nurturing and that can develop student relationships. If any of these qualities describe you, come on down to Coventry High School and fill out an application.
That was what we did. Yay! So my department only has 3 people in it. We used my iPad to record it. Bill Shedden, our French teacher, was our star, and then Julie Cryer was our narrator. And none of the 3 of us had ever used this app before, and we got an hour to just poke around at it and play with it. And that was kind of the start of things. We kind of, I think as a staff, figured out you just need to have time to just poke around and play with stuff and figure out what's going to work. Some stuff's going to work and some stuff's not. But when it works, it's pretty neat. So I think Debbie's going to talk to you a little bit about how she used the same app with her kids.
Hi, so I teach 10th grade English, and when I heard that I would be receiving an iPad, I had some excitement, but I was also afraid because I'm one of these very non-techie type of people, old school. I don't have a Kindle. I love, the feel of real books. So I did go to the summer PDs because I knew I would need every bit of learning I could get. And so I'm going to talk to you about Educreations, and the way I thought I'd introduce it is I came up with a little acronym for Educreations, and to kind of just keep me focused here. So for E, I wanted an app that was easy and would enrich my curriculum. And Educreation I could easily integrate into an established lesson that I had used the previous year. D, I knew I had to dive in and try something because if I didn't, I would just forget. So I kind of just had this attitude of, all right, I am going to use this iPad the first week of school. Just be brave. U, up. I was pumped up from the summer workshops, and I knew the kids would be pumped up with their iPads, so I wanted to definitely capitalize on their enthusiasm. And then R, I wanted it to be relevant, make the lesson, I wanted the iPad to be something relevant to them. The next letter is E, experiences. So I was thinking about what lesson could I use that would easily integrate with Educreations. And there's a poem that I use, maybe if your English teacher's in here, it's called Where I'm From poem. It's a list poem, and it's where they talk about where are they from, what makes them who they are. So it would be a way they could talk about their experiences, and they would actually write the poem on paper the old-fashioned way, and then use the Educreation. So A, app, Educreations would be the perfect app to take the poem to that next level of augmentation that Carla was talking about. And T, teamwork. The students and I were a team as we learned how to use the app together because I was just learning it, and so they were right there with me. Oh, this is good, Dale. This is what you have to do. So it was a great way to get to know them. I love the results. The kids recorded their poems, which added a very personal touch. O, optimistic. My attitude, it helped my attitude toward using iPads, to be optimistic, because I knew there was going to be some struggles, but this was a great way to start off the year. And new, with the iPads, it's a whole new classroom, and I have to accept that, and just be ready to move forward. And S, story. Everyone has a story to tell, and the poems is where the kids can tell their story and use technology in doing it. So I want to show you one of my students. It's the Educreations. It's a screencast, so they would find images that would fit their poem, and then they would recite the poem as as the images go along. So here is Kaylee's. Should I start? It's coming up. Okay.
I am from a small town where I've always lived, from Spivey, Coventry. I am from the 4 seasons of unconditional love. I am from jumping in the fresh raked leaves and summers by my grandma's pool. I'm from winters struggling on the bunny slopes, crashing and losing my skis halfway down. I'm from crashing waves and rosy red cheeks to family vacations to different states. I'm from campfires in the backyard with Dad. I'm from dreadful Sunday house cleaning, but the work that has paid off. I'm from never give up and always keep trying to opening up to my true self. I am from trying different sports to finally finding my true self. In my closet, there are memories enclosed in boxes, containing smiles, laughs, and tears, photos with no regrets, and lessons along the way, saving them for my future family to prove the care every family should have.
So that's it. And I have to say, too, what was really neat when having a connection with the parents, there were some, especially some of the boys, they were very opening up about their childhood, and through this, the parents were like, oh my gosh, I never knew that, that meant so much, going on that family vacation, when I was 8 years old. And so it was kind of a neat thing to share with the parents because they appreciated, this type of lesson where they could really see what was important to their children as they, now coming from being a 10th grader. So that was an added bonus to this type of project. So, any questions about the app? It's very easy to use, so a lot of fun. Thank you.
Katie, back to you. How do you use one iPad with a class of students, seniors that is,
Yes.
who are not benefiting from the iPad initiative directly?
This is correct. I'm in a subject area where we get mixed classes all the time. And where this got rolled out to the top of my class, a lot of my younger classes are mixed, so I have some iPads and some without. But then I have my higher classes that I have juniors and seniors that I have nothing but mine. So,
What are you teaching at? It might be important for the movie.
it's true. What I'm going to show you is my ECE Spanish class, which is what we call our Spanish 5, but these kids are going to earn college credit through UConn. So these are juniors, and I have 8 juniors and 1 senior. And so they're all on track to earn their 3 UConn credits this year, which is very, very exciting. So they're equally as excited to be able to use this technology, but they don't have their own pieces. And one day they said, Mrs. Pease, we would love to make a video. And I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. No idea, guys. And it turned out in the end, I only had 1 student of those 9 that had ever used the iMovie app before. So even those kids were on the same page with me. We want to do it, but we don't know how. So we took a unit we were working on. We did a unit on dating. And so the course they're doing is intermediate composition. So they were writing personal ads that were kind of cheesy. And then they decided they wanted to do a goofy dating video. If we could pretend to be people, what would it be like? Well, this is what you can do with 1 iPad and 10 people in a room that don't know what they're doing. And I won't show you the whole thing because it's kind of long, but I will show you some of it.
Yo soy Tío Adam. Yo soy Antonio. Me llamo Hannah.
Yo soy Carolina Margarita Julio Picar Montoya de la Rosa Valley Perdón Ramirez. Yo soy una muchacha bonita y inteligente.
Soy muy hermoso y sofisticado y estupendo al arte y al mago. Si nosotros tratamos, tú puedes tocarte mi pelo que fluye en el viento. Vivía en el Palacio Grande, pero después de la revolución yo solamente quedarme en el apartamento.
So I'll kind of pause it for a minute. So iMovie is a pretty cool app. It's an app I paid for to put on the iPad, but it wasn't super expensive. But figuring out how to videotape them, how to drop them in, how to add sounds. What do we do when they get goofy and mess up and we have to re-record stuff? How do we fix that? And that was something that as a class we were able to all figure out together, and that was one of the coolest things, and I think really bonded us together. Is let's see what this does, and that's when we were finding out how to add stuff and take stuff out. At the end, when they find their perfect match, which all happens to be with each other, we ended up putting in camera sounds and all kinds of stuff to show their lovely little pictures at the end. And they were mad that they didn't finish editing by the time I was showing this to you today. So but really, I mean, 1 iPad with a lab stool, a couple of desks. Yep.
Kate, before you used iMovie or integrate this kind of technology into instruction, were your kids always so excited about oral proficiency in the Spanish classroom?
This particular group is excited about anything, but yeah, they're pretty excited. They regularly want to speak more Spanish and write more Spanish. So this was kind of a new outlet for them, other than just talking to each other or talking to me or recording themselves on a microphone, that sort of thing. They got to create their own characters this way and got to kind of become someone and have fun. Like, you know, we have Gina who's pretending to be from the French Revolution in Spanish, you know, but you know, it made it more real for them, you know, and so it took us 2 weeks to put together what we have. So we kind of filmed everybody in stages and just dragged and dropped all their little segments in, and then we're able to kind of overlap stuff. The editing piece, the kids did it. They took my iPad, projected it on the smart board so that everyone could see it, and then one person was kind of doing what the suggestions were. So even with one iPad and 10 people, we ended up, this is 10 minutes long. So we actually did everything with just the one iPad without sending anything else out because it didn't happen. So we were pumped.
Next, we're going to have Jeff's going to talk a little bit about what's happening at our 6-8 school, which is that kind of carded model that's in the departments, the social studies departments that I mentioned a little bit earlier in the day. And what's happening there? Jeff, over to you.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I'll be pretty quick. I don't know why that's not going on.
It will. Just get in there. There you go.
There we go. All right, so we got the iPad cart model for our social studies department. We had about 45 iPads and a tower cart for 2 teachers. One teacher would keep that cart in their classroom, and the second teacher would truck down a little hand cart, collect her 22, 23 iPads, and take them off to her classroom every day. Some of the things that the social studies were working with using the iPads for were, they were looking at the Genius Scan, an app to import a lot of their text materials. Odysseus was one of the pieces they were reading for their Greek gods. So they had scanned all those pages in so the students could use the iPad as a resource instead of continuing to take out the book. Kind of saves us on the resources of having to buy new books every year because it's on the iPad. We don't have to worry about wrinkled and ripped pages. In their research, they use EduCreations, another app for enhancing student projects. So instead of maybe doing a poster about something in prehistory when they were studying Mesopotamia or when they were studying cavemen, they would go ahead and create an EduCreations activity that enhanced that learning for them. In addition, the iPads were used as a resource for web-based research when creating any kind of content for class. They introduced a variety of apps to enhance student creativity. So we looked at not just EduCreations, we looked at Evernote, we looked at Penultimate and Sketch, and then another variety of resources that students may have had on their iPads already. We have students who have their own and they brought their own into school and asked if they could use them to create their activities. My last slide for the middle school, students in the 7th grade, a group that I had worked with, were given some time to create a persuasive media piece about saving the rainforest. Some of the techniques they had to use was using web graphics, importing audio or recording audio, adding text, or video. And they could use any app they wanted to, and the idea was to enhance the idea of creativity over using a specific app. And we tried to spend as much time as we could with them to give them an idea on the different types of apps that were out there and to use something that sparked their interest in their creation. So that is my part for the middle school.
Great. Thank you. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Hallie, who's going to talk about what's happening at our 3-5 school, specifically in supporting one of our literacy initiatives.
Thank you.
Hello.
I'm Hallie Wells, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher at the Intermediate School. We have a cart that we use in our school. It's 3-5. It has 40 iPads in it, so we share that between the 3 grades. I check out 3 of those iPads on a daily basis to use them during my literacy block. Up here is what you would see is a reading conference form that I use with my students during our daily 5 reading workshop hour every day. And this is on my personal iPad. The kids are scrambled out all around my room, reading busily, taking notes in their reading journals, and I come and whisper whisper, sit right next to them, and ask questions about what they're reading. So they're all reading something different, but this is a way for me to see that they're interacting with their reading and understanding what they're doing. So I ask questions like, what is the book about so far? This is when I would get a summary from my students. Then I'll have them read aloud to me a page or two, and I will be taking notes on their fluency, if they have any good reading strategies, if they get stuck on words. When they finish, I'll ask for a retelling just of those 2 pages to make sure that they're comprehending that specific part of the text. And then we'll have a conversation about their book level. Is this a just right book for you? Why or why not? You know, why is it important that we choose just right books? And because I used a Google form to create this, it shoots data right into a spreadsheet on Google, and then I can organize it by student, and look, this is how my student is summarizing when I met with them twice a week. Or this is how my student their reading fluency is progressing. And at the way bottom, I also even have a spot to make notes. So the student and I will make a goal for the day, and I'll say, when I meet with you in 2 days, I want to talk to you about this goal. Maybe your summaries need to be a little bit shorter, maybe you need to use transition words when you're summarizing. And they write it in their notebook, and I have it on my iPad, and they know that I'm checking back and I have that data collected. So that's one form that I use. Another thing I use during the literacy block is the 3 iPads for the students. It's a listening center. I use RazKids at this moment because it's a free app. And the children will log in. My students with IEPs and my students on tiered support have their own individual accounts so that the books are leveled. And they're listening and answering questions at books at their level. But then there's 3 accounts. I've color-coded them kind of like a high, medium, low, so that the rest of my class can log in and have access to those texts as well. And then the final thing I just wanted to share with you, I've been using Nearpod quite a bit in my classroom as well. The days that I sign out more than 3 iPads, I'll sign out the whole class set, and I'll use Nearpod to deliver my instruction. It's kind of like an interactive PowerPoint. So the students will have a slide that I created set up with them, but instead of just reading the slide or seeing fancy things that I set up on the slide, there are different features and different kinds of questions that they can ask or answer, and it collects data and then sends me a report at the end of my lesson.
Good for formative assessment, right?
Yes, and it gives me lots of information. And I've also used Edmodo recently for that as well. They have an Edmodo snapshot, which is Common Core State Standard aligned, and you can choose whatever standard for the grade level that you're on, and it gives, between 4 and 16 questions on that standard. Students log in through their accounts, answer the questions, and you have the data immediately. So I've been busy using them. It's a really great tool, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Great, thank you, Callie. So Jeff's going to come back up, and he's going to talk to you more about what's been going on at our K2 school. Now, K2. How many K2 people out there? Not too many, a couple, right? You guys know how things are down there. They have the kids all day long, just like Callie, but they're 4, 5, 6 years old. We are moving quick. We have got a lot to teach. We've got all those Common Core standards Callie just mentioned. It's kinder, we've got to learn to read. We're doing full day K. Woo, 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 got a lot of curriculum cover. Wait, you got iPads too. Ooh. So, right, works with some in supporting literacy and what's happening there, but at the same time, things are moving so fast, and you got to keep things going, right? Mr. Petrone, you always talk about wanting to see those little people in action, those 4-year-olds. You got to move quick to keep up with what's going on. So to actually have the teachers stop for a little bit and reflect on how can I use these devices with my students. I haven't quite figured that out with that SAMR model, right? How am I really going to make that work? Either substitute, augment, how am I going to make that fit in? We listened to what they were really saying as a staff, and they were really looking for PD, real-time PD delivered like alongside them as they work. So we really felt that was an important way for Jeff to not only use both of his roles, his ed tech coach to provide PD training, real-time training to the teachers, but also providing enrichment for the whole school at the same time using the iPads. So it really worked out really well, and I'm going to turn that over to his blended role job at K2.
So as Mrs. Kennedy said, it was quite an interesting challenge to try and figure out how I was going to help some teachers who have probably never picked up certain pieces of technology before, and try to incorporate it in a classroom full of first and second graders. And that's predominantly the two grades that I worked in. We have 7 first graders and seven first grade teachers, 7 second grade teachers, and I'm only there 1 day a week. So I had to rotate through these classes and try to find something that's effective for the teachers and the students to do was certainly a challenge. So when I went into the classrooms, I went in with the idea that the students are going to be just like the teacher, and the teacher is going to be just like the student. So everyone's going to learn together as a community. And hopefully, once the teachers felt a comfort level, they could be able to use the iPads at their own discretion when I'm not in the building. And that was the goal for us. In this building, we had a cart of iPads, about 45 again, and then the principal had distributed, the teachers all got to have an iPad, so they could kind of learn some of the things as we were going along. I'd give them a little prep before we started. So here's kind of the iPad cart model, part 2, grades 1 and 2. So first was initial familiarization. I went into the classrooms and many of the kids said, "Oh yeah, I have an iPad." And I said, "Yeah, what do you do with it?" "Oh, we play games." And that's what they do. They play games. They know games. They know how to turn it on. They know how to play games. But as far as like the functionality and the basic components of the iPad, they had no idea what those buttons and screens and tabs and little things in the back were. So we went through a whole lesson. It was good for the teachers to know too, because when there's a problem, they need to be able to identify exactly what the issue is so that our tech people can help solve that issue. So if there's a problem with the microphone or the speaker or the home button, we needed to be able to know that. In addition to that, students and teachers learned how to interact with the iPad features. So there was a course over the summertime we had in our district where quite a few teachers participated in learning how to do the 5-finger pinch and the swiping, dragging and dropping and tapping to open apps. But not as many of the teachers in our K-2 school participated in that, so they needed to know those kinds of techniques as well. As did the kids. How to close out apps, what an app is. We went through all of that information. We kind of had like I sat in a little cushy chair and everyone sat on the carpet and we talked about the iPad and it was great. And then after about half an hour they were sick of hearing me and they wanted to actually use it. So I gave them some what we called sandbox time. So they got around, they found the games, they started playing. After that initial familiarization, I wanted to get into some app introductions, some things that would be more effective for teachers to use. So the first app we used, again, is Educreations. Very, very simple app to use. If you're familiar with it, you know that it is that kind of simultaneous whiteboard recording device. So the first activity I did with these students was simple bio. Just learn how to use the camera, front-facing, rear-facing, take a picture of yourself, and record some information about yourself. And then we play it back. That was our first activity. The second activity, once students felt a little bit more comfortable and the teachers felt more comfortable, was to create an animal research project based on their science topics. They were researching animals in the first grade, and they had to select an animal, and we had some pictures pre-selected for them. They picked an animal. Then they had to write and record audio of the characteristics of that animal, and then play it back. So they got to share those with the teachers, and that was another great way to incorporate that. And then once that was done, a lot of teachers took those ideas and then went off and started creating their own activities with Educreation. Some teachers used it to do math lessons, solve these problems, save it, then they could go back and look at how the students solved the problems. Some of the skills that we needed to make sure the students were able to use were how to record audio, how to use the camera, how to save photos from the web, and a variety of other different adding text, typing skills. Our next app that we introduced was Evernote, which proved to be a challenge in itself because if you know Evernote, you have a specific amount of data you can actually save. And when you have one Evernote account for an entire class and all the kids are using it, you fill up that data really quick. So we're trying to find ways that are, interesting to get the kids to be able to have these Evernote accounts but not have to give them a specific email address, because that becomes a whole privacy thing. So we were able to work that out, and the students were creating original written pieces to share with their families. And in talking with the teachers, we felt it would be a great idea not just to have, the students write the paper, they get it, bring it home, and they give it to mom and dad, and they put it on their fridge, and it's, it's old-fashioned, it's nice. But we wanted them to do this more in the electronic age, digital age. So after they typed their piece, it was about the holidays, they typed their piece, they recorded their voice as the message, then they took a picture of themselves, inserted it into Evernote, and then because the teachers had the parent emails, we emailed that off to their parents. So skills for this were typing, camera, audio recording, and emailing. We got a lot of positive feedback from parents because they got the emails like in the middle of the workday. And they were like, wow, that was such a wonderful thing to get in the middle of the day. And the kids really enjoyed kind of the response to that too, because they're not used to having that kind of feedback when they've done something right away and get that immediate feedback. So that was Evernote. We moved on to Nearpod recently to show how a teacher can actually instruct in the classroom using the iPad and students following along. Students interacted with teacher-led lessons. Lessons incorporated math topics for grades 1 and 2. If you're not familiar with Nearpod, it's basically like a PowerPoint presentation that you share with all the iPads in the class, and you actually control the screen, so the students can't really do anything on the screen unless there's an interactive component to it. So we were doing base 10 in our first and second grade, and we wanted to make sure that the students would be able to follow along, so I'd have a description of some information, I'd slide to the next picture, there'd be a question. They can interact by answering that question. The Nearpod app records that information for us. At the end, you can have a quiz. Kids answer quiz questions, as many as you can fit. That data also gets loaded into your account, and then you can share that, save it. It's great for data collection. Students, I was able to work with teachers to create our own individual lessons. You can do it right online. You can purchase lessons. You can download free lessons. And you can also create your own. It's very much like PowerPoint. It's basically a drag and drop into the interface, and your slides you create your slides, you publish it, and then you can share that out. Other activities that students were using in the K2 school was the QR code reader to connect to content. Some teachers would go ahead and they'd have QR codes around the classroom, and the kids would use the scanner, beep it off, and it would bring up content and the kids could read about it. Uses of a variety of online sites for drill and practice and math language skill building. And then RazKids was a huge popular demand for an app in our K2 schools. Teachers really wanted that app for a center activity for students to go to for enhanced reading instruction. And with that, I have a couple of short educations examples that students in our second grade had created. So this is how to make simple lemonade.
Lemonade is really simple to make. You need lemon, sugar, and water. You also need a juicer, measuring cup, and pot. You will juice 10 to 12 lemons. This might make your hands sting. Mix the sugar with water and ask an adult to turn on the stove to boil the mixture. Take the mixture off the stove and put it in a different bowl, then put it in the refrigerator. Next, pour the lemon juice into a pitcher. Are you ready for the next step? Now pour your mixture into the pitcher. Next, stir the lemonade and then put ice in the lemonade. Then you can drink the lemonade.
Okay, so there was an example of one of our second grade creations using EduCreations. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mrs. Kennedy now.
I wish I had 5 more minutes, but I know it's time because we put together, out of the mouths of the students, I couldn't bring them all here, I only brought those 3 seniors, but Jeff worked with one of our students that helps us on the help desk to put together a compilation video that's 5 minutes long about what the kids had to say about using the iPads in all those computer, but we're here for questions. We appreciate your time, and we're here to help.
Can you play as people leave?
I could. I think Mr. Spivey's working on that, hooking it up.
What I like most is probably using the iPad. It was really, really fun, and we got to watch some videos, and I learned a lot of new stuff. They can help you write books and play games. I wish I could use the iPad to do videos. I would like to know more about how to take videos and take pictures. Email people if you can on your iPad. I would like to work more with the iPad. I get to use the iPads once a week in class. I would like to also use the iPads more often.
iPads, they're really cool. I want to use the iPads more. A lot of other classes need to use them. I know that.
I would just like a little bit more time.
What I would like to do with the iPads is play more games. That's all the kids want to do that.
With the iPads, we have learned lots of new apps and ways to use the electronics the right way. On your iPad, we've learned to do that. With the iPad, we learned how to click a single button.